Okay, welcome to the Lovecraft Easy and Talk Show. Today is Sunday, October the 4th, 2015, first October first Sunday in October, reverse that. And our guest today is crime writer Trent Zelazny, and thanks for being on the show, Trent.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Um, let's see here. We got Laird Barron, Matthew Carpenter, Rick Lay, Joe Pulver. Pete Rollick is in Portland this weekend, so he won't be here. One of our panelists. Um, so hey, I heard. Congratulations! I heard you got married recently.
I got married in July. Thank you. It's
Awesome.
probably the best decision I ever made, honestly.
Good
Well,
thing.
we thought we were going to talk about you. We'll talk about Laurel, right?
Yeah, Laurel. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Talk about her a bunch and make her self-conscious.
well, I heard a rumor. I think I saw online that George R. Martin is the reason why you guys met. Is that right?
Yes.
How did that work?
Um, well, George, I was just strictly living off my writing at the time, which I'm not a big name. You can imagine how difficult that was. And George opened a movie theater here in Santa Fe, and he asked me if I wanted to work there a couple days a week.
Mm-hmm.
I said, sure. And so we started there, and first day, in walks this beautiful woman, and that was Laurel. And we started dating about a month after that, and that was 2+ years ago. And then we just got married in July. But yeah,
Yes.
it was George hiring us both. But,
Was she going to a movie, or did she begin working there as well?
yeah, she began working as well. She was
Okay.
with concessions. Managed to become very high up, but now
Well,
we're.
congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm very happy for you. All right, so guys, please feel free to jump in with any questions. I really do not want to hog all the questions. I know you guys have questions for Trent as well. But you're a crime writer, and I was reading a couple interviews that people have done with you in the past, and you were talking about in one of them the darkness in people as opposed to horror fiction, that kind of darkness that we associate with that, and that you enjoy writing about those kinds of characters. Can you talk
Yeah.
a little bit about why you like to write about those kinds of characters, and start a little bit about that?
Yeah, I became really interested in the human monsters. And partly I think it was due to I lived in Florida for a couple of years, and let's just say it was a really not good time. And I had a really serious alcohol problem. I was actually engaged, and that girl wound up committing suicide, which didn't help the drinking any, and it spiraled out of control. And I made a suicide attempt. Fortunately, did not succeed. Um, but just my time in Florida, being a drunk and homeless a fair amount of the time, I really got to see the cruelty of people, I guess, more than anything.
Yeah.
And so it really interested me. And so that's kind of what I've been thinking about, looking at a lot. But there's, it's not that all people are terrible. I just became interested in exploring that.
Is that when you became interested in writing, or thought about writing crime fiction at some point after that, or had it entered your mind before? I also saw, I think, in that same interview where you weren't much interested in crime writing as a kid, or when you were younger.
Yeah, crime writing, I got into that much later on. I was more of a horror and science fiction person growing up, especially horror as a kid.
Yeah.
And then I realized one day I'd never seen The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, and so I rented it. And suddenly I just became obsessed with noir, Bogart and Cagney and all those guys. And I started looking at, each movie that I thought was great. If it was based on the book, I'd go find the book. And the one that really rocked me was when I saw Dark Passage with Bogart and Bacall.
Yeah.
And it was based on a book by David Goodis. So I started reading Goodis, and he became very influential. And then I started reading all the other guys from that era.
Yeah, let me put that on screen, Joe. There you go.
Oh, yes, there it is. That's the man.
Trent and I share a love for Goodis.
Yes.
Is that the was that the movie? Was the plastic surgery where he escapes?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, the plastic surgery one. And for me, for whatever reason, it reminded me, not just in tone, it reminded me a little bit of like a Parker novel or something, Richard Stark kind of thing, which is very appealing to me. And so I went and explored, and then realized I felt a lot more at home writing that kind of thing than I had.
It's one of the things I so love about your work is all that truth that I get off of the page with Goodis. You do the same thing. You know, it's right there. Really makes the work powerful.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, he was a big influence. He helped me figure out how to express my honesty a bit, I think. Was a lot of what Goodis did for me.
Yeah, Laird, do you have some?
Oh, I was just going to say, I don't know if I'm on the screen or not. There we go. Butterfly potion. I couldn't help but think when you were talking a couple minutes ago about what got you into writing crime fiction that seems to correspond in some ways to the character Perry and Butterfly Potion. Whatever you feel comfortable talking about, I can't help but think though that there's a lot of you in this story just from what you said, and just from I would have guessed that just from the rawness of the story, the matter of fact delivery. It's noir, and yet it has sort of an uplifting ending, although nothing's really changed. So I guess it does qualify as noir. But I'm listening to you talk, and I'm going, this is very close to you. This story.
Yes. Yeah, it is very close to me. Both the main characters are in one way or another. That one and Fractal Despondency, I think, are the two most me. Those characters are the most, in reality, close to me than anything else I've written. Butterfly Potion I'd written a few other ones that were really dark, Fractal Despondency, Shadow Boxer. Then Butterfly Potion was kind of in the same vein, but I wanted to put a slightly more positive twist.
Well, I got that, and because I've read Fractal Despondency, that was another one of your books I read, and there's more distance in this. I look at the date, it's 2012, so I don't know when all this previous stuff went down in your actual life, but it feels like you have a little more. It's still raw, but like you have more distance, so you actually have some leeway to put a sort of an upbeat or an uptick at the end to it. So I think it's fascinating. It's a fascinating arc in your writing.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that was most of the really bad stuff was 2009, 2010.
Yeah.
And Fractal Despondency I wrote in 2011. And Butterfly Potion is 2012. So yeah, I got some time away, a little more distance, able to make peace with a couple things.
It's a fine story, and I'd like to ask you, I'm sure we'll have a bunch of things to ask you, but just ask you a real basic question. When did you start writing? And a follow-up would be, when did you realize that you could be a professional writer?
So when did I start writing? Well, I started writing when I was incredibly young. And my dad bought me a weird word processor. Do you remember this little like LED thing, which you could see like two words and then you print it up? And I wrote my first short story. I was younger than 10. And I just picked up the keyboard and wrote my very first horror short story, which was called Axe Killer, which was basically like an amalgam of Friday the 13th movies. And I showed it to my grandmother, and she ripped it apart and put me down so much that I didn't write again until late in high school. And I wrote a story for English and got an A. And that's when my dad became really thrilled. And then he started talking to me a bit about writing. I didn't know I was going to do it professionally probably till I was about 20. I decided that's what I really wanted to do. Somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm sorry if I can interrupt real quick. There's a real. I remember reading a real good. In fact, I think this is one of the introductions that you wrote for me, Trent. One of the October issues, where, if I remember right, driving home from school, your dad picked you up from school, and you told him that you had written that story in English. And can you share what he did? Because I just thought that's a very sweet story.
Yeah, that's we were driving home. My sister was in the back seat. I was up front with my dad. And we were just chatting, and then I mentioned I got an A, which was rare for me because I did not like school. And he asked me for what, and I said for a short story I wrote. And he sort of smiled and asked if I had the story with me, and I said yeah. And so he just pulled over to the side of the road and asked if he could read it right then and there.
That's
And
great.
I was, of course, terrified because it was also my father who was, Roger Zelazny, and I'm just this kid, and but he loved it, and we started talking more about writing from then on, and then I was there for while he wrote A Night in Lonesome October and his musical Godson, which was a lot of fun to hang out with him like that. It was really cool.
Joe, I know you have some questions for Trent. Probably do.
I'd like to hear him talk more about. Well, first off, I'm surprised he came to crime and hard-boiled stuff, and you are late. Because even though we talk back and forth on Facebook, that I didn't realize. Because I came to it early. This is
Yes.
12 years old. This is not the copy I read when I was 12. I had the one with the red stripper on the cover that I actually stole. Not from a store. It was theft, but not theft. So my love goes back almost 50 years, and I just assumed you'd come to it a lot earlier.
Joe, could you just say the title and the author for those who are going to listen to this?
Oh, it's The Arm by Clark Howard.
It's a great.
It's a great novel. It's basically a Jim Croce song. Crapshooter from Kentucky goes up to Chicago to make his fortune and falls in love with a stripper who happens to be the girlfriend of the evil crime boss, and things ensue from there. It was made into a very so-so film. I'd love to see somebody redo it. That'd be a great film. But I'm interested once you got beyond the literature, or got beyond film, and once you really started delving into the literature. Who, what? I mean, I know Goodis, but a lot of people out there don't know Goodis. So you want to talk about Goodis and some of the other guys, because I'm sure Elroy, I'm sure Thompson, but I'd just like to see your evolution. As
far as with Goodis goes, or just with crime, just the literature.
With crime, with crime literature.
Okay. Yeah, David Goodis was the first one to really rock me as far as like, oh my god, I gotta read everything this guy's written. And then I'd read a little Jim Thompson, but that got me picking up more and more of his. Also, found a writer I really liked who was really pretty obscure, by the name of Jonathan Craig.
Okay.
He wrote, some very, very good stuff. He was considered very trashy, but I think they're great stories. Renegade Cop and Junkie, and these great stories. I just love them. And that expanded me, further into two other big ones, Lawrence Block and even more so Donald Westlake.
Okay.
Really, really big influences. And There's a whole bunch of them. Of course, now that we're on here, I'm drawing a blank on half of them.
I'm a huge Lord's Block fan. Yeah.
Cornell Woolrich was another important one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great writing.
Yeah, so I assume you love those Matthew Scudder books. That's probably what you're most referring to.
Yes. I love Matthew Scudder. I love Bernie Rodenbach.
Yeah.
And of course the Parker novels and the Dortmunder novels. And
Well, I have to ask this since I'm such a Scudder geek. Do you have a favorite Matthew Scudder novel?
the first one, Sins of Our Fathers.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That one, for whatever reason, it sticks with me more than the others do.
I think I discovered the what was it? A shot in what's the one about the ice pick killer? I'm blanking on the title right now.
I'm going to be trying to look at that because I just jumped to Dexter, and that's not right.
Yeah, no, and it's not a knife in the dark. I'm thinking of something else. For whatever reason, I discovered that one first. I think my favorite might be the one that he sort of the flashback when Sacred Gin Mill closes. So
Sorry, I didn't hear that part.
Sorry?
I didn't hear that last part.
When the Sacred Gin Mill closes. I think
yeah.
One of my favorites. Yeah. So.
I thought they did a good job with the Walk Among the Tombstones movie, which apparently nobody really liked all that much. I thought it was really
I liked it. I did. And I thought it was interesting how, it's they set it in the 90s.
Yes.
So.
Which was cool. And I guess it was just a little too dark to warrant a sequel, because I would have loved to see Liam Neeson do more Scudder. I think would have been awesome.
Yeah, I thought it was an enjoyable film.
They're not going to do a sequel? Have you heard that?
I heard that they weren't doing one.
Oh gosh, that's so bad.
Well, critical reception wasn't all that warm, and box office wasn't great. So.
Yeah. And sadly, that's what we base it on.
Yeah.
How much money did it make? Oh, that wasn't enough. Okay.
Well, that's Hollywood for you. They don't care about story and art anymore. Everything is a commodity.
Yep.
Well, it sure was a hell of a lot better than that one with in the the mid '80s with
Jeff Bridges.
Jeff Bridges, yeah, that was horrible.
Yeah, that was a bad movie.
Yeah, they didn't even put it in New York City.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's set in California.
Yeah, it's L.A., isn't it?
Yeah, in L.A. Yeah, that's pretty bad.
What are some of your other than Bogart? What are some of your favorite noir films?
Well, I guess they technically don't consider them noir. They consider them gangster, but the James Cagney, early Cagney stuff, Public Enemy, Angels with Dirty Faces, the Roaring Twenties, especially the Roaring Twenties, probably. Cagney would definitely be my other go-to guy, and I've never, even if the film is bad, like Bogart, he's always good, and always just blows me away. I really like John Garfield, Ida Lupino. Pretty fantastic.
She's a goddess, man.
Yeah, just saw Joe's reaction.
Yeah, I love Ida Lupino. I like just typing her name in stories, so I can see it somewhere.
Yes.
She was a pretty good director too.
She's a damn good director and important as hell. I mean, if you start looking into her on the other side, on the back side of the camera, her work, and when she was doing it, this is an extremely important female in Hollywood on multiple levels. Plus, she was married to Howard Duff, who I adored when I was a kid. I thought he was like the ultimate,
Yeah.
So, now,
have you
seen more? I'm sorry?
I always loved They Drive By Night.
Yeah.
The Doors made it.
I should have asked you this. Go ahead, Joe. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say it's so funny because when you look at very early Ida Lupino, I mean, my God, what a stunning young woman. And you look at her early roles, and to see what she is going to develop into, especially in a directorial capacity, it just, who would have thunk it, you know?
And at that time, too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like there was virtually no one else out there.
Right.
Yeah, great.
It was a great one.
I should have asked you this at the beginning, but could you list a few of your novels so that people out there who haven't read you yet can
actually
look them up?
I posted a few on the webpage, Mike.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it, man.
Wasn't sure what to do, so I just grabbed a handful of my books.
Awesome. Okay.
This one.
Oh, that's right. Shadowboxer.
Shadowboxer. This is a we'll say pre-butterfly potion.
Okay.
Darker, bleak butterfly potion.
Yep. Love it.
My first novel I actually sold, which would be Destination Unknown.
Destination Unknown.
Yeah, I have some mixed feelings about it. I have mixed feelings about all my work, though.
We all
the
do.
Day the Leash Gave. Yeah, which is my short story collection.
Day the Leash gave way for anyone.
And then 3 others here, which is Sleep Gently, which is probably my favorite, honestly.
I was going to ask you that. Why is that your favorite?
I don't know. It feels like I clicked into something. You know, I like how it's structured. I like the characters, and it takes place in Santa Fe, and I basically set up a robbery for one of the really wealthy hotels here, which was fun, actually. It's fun to do that. Actually, I have a little story about that. I'll just show these 2 real quick. Julia to Call Texas, which is another one. And then the last one, which would be from Evil Jester Press, which is Voiceless. And there's a few others, but those are the main ones.
What is I haven't read that one yet. Too Late to Call Texas. What is that about?
It's kind of an homage to Cormac McCarthy. I was debating calling Joe Lansdale of all people one night, and I looked at my watch and I said, "Oh, it's too late to call Texas." And my brother was sitting there. He says, "That sounds like a book you'd write." And so I sat down and wrote it. I'll be okay. I'm pretty fond of that one. There's a lot of Spanish in it, so some people are annoyed by that.
Yeah.
Now you've also edited. You want to talk about that? And want to talk about that a little bit?
I've edited a few things of Mirages, which Joe is in.
Yep.
Along with, who else we got in there? We got Tom Piccirilli and Keelan Patrick Burke, Elizabeth Black, a bunch of really great writers in there. And that was fun. I kind of found it's probably not my strong suit, but I do enjoy doing it. I also did a collection of classic crime stories called Dames, Booze, Guns, and Gumshoes, which was also fun, but
that's a fun title.
it was a fun one to do. And I'm just finishing up co-editing with Warren Lapine, Shadows and Reflections, which is a tribute anthology to my father. And it's the first time.
What was that title again, Trent? I'm sorry.
Shadows and Reflections.
Shadows and Reflections, right? Because I think I saw that you had done a Indiegogo for that in the past.
Yeah.
And is that available now then for sale on Amazon and so forth?
It'll be coming out very soon.
Okay.
It's got an introduction from George R. R. Martin and a afterword from Neil Gaiman. Got Lawrence Watt Evans, Kelly Link, a bunch of great authors in it. And it's really going to be, I think it's going to be a really, really great anthology. And Warren Lapine helped a lot. He was teaching me a lot on that one as we went along.
Yeah.
But yeah, that should be out very soon.
Cool. One of these days I'll start bugging you again, and we'll start talking about a Goodis tribute again.
Yeah. I would love to do that. That's how Butterfly Potion came about.
I mean, just good as needs to be done, you know.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
I have a question from the audience for you, Trent. Kim wants to know if you could write for any detective or criminal, real or fictional, regardless of copyright, who would it be and why?
If I could write about any criminal
Yeah, or detective.
or detective, I would probably, off the top of my head, I would go with Parker. Richard Sparks Parker. Just those books, I don't know, there's something about Parker I just love. And he's, he's a son of a bitch, but he's got a code. And you can't help but respect him. And I've just loved every one of those books. So I'd probably go with him. But, I wouldn't mind playing around with Matthew Scudder or something like that, too. That would be a lot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Wasn't there some kind of versus anthology recently? Maybe you know what I'm talking about, Joe, if you don't, Trent, where it was like Jack Reacher either teaming up or versus another detective. Does that ring a bell, you guys?
Yeah,
It's been out the last couple of years.
Or I can't remember what the title of it was, but Paul Wilson had a story in there too. It
Yeah.
was team-ups of various detectives for the most part. I've only read like 2 stories in it. I have the book on Kindle somewhere.
Was that something Lahane edited?
I just don't remember. It's just not coming to me right now.
I just have the vaguest sense of something like that was in the works or whatever, but then it fell off my radar.
Yeah, there's so much. That's a problem. I forget stuff all the time.
Oh,
Oh, God, yeah.
you can't keep up. Well, speaking of so much, who do you like now, literary-wise? I mean, as far as crime fiction.
That's a real good question. I've actually been, it's not crime, but I've been recently just reading a lot of Joe McKinney. And I'm just loving his books, his Dead World books and all that. Really fun. Crime. Why am I drawing it? I'm drawing a blank on that. It's always how it goes.
Hey, I'm the host.
I didn't know if there was
I
somebody or I didn't know if there was somebody or a series that you were partial to. I mean, Mike is a big Jack Reacher fan. I'm a big fan of Reachers. I really love Robert Creas's Elvis and Joe Pitt stuff. I just find them they're a fun way to spend the night.
Cool. James Rollins, I like a lot.
Okay.
He's done a lot of interesting, fun stuff. It's like, Indiana Jones meets, Criminal Minds or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have
You're
to.
such a talented crime writer that I really want. I'm sorry, Laird. Do you have a question?
No, I was just going to say I don't think anybody can beat Donald Ray Pollock right now. I think Devil All the Time, Knock'em Sith are 2 of the great noir crime sort of. There's some Elmore Leonard kind of stuff and horror mixed in there, but I have to say the best. This is for everybody to check out, and I know that you're a fan of his. Trent Piccirilli did a novella a few years ago called Every Shallow Cut, which reduced me to. I had to put it down and go get a hanky to blow my nose in. It's it does cut you, and I think you in particular would resonate with you.
All right. I love Piccirilli.
I was just going to say, Trent, you're such a talented crime writer that I just have to ask you this question. Joe mentioned Jack Reacher a minute ago, and I am a big fan of Jack Reacher, as are many people. But I noticed that Lee Child, I think it was an introduction to the first Jack Reacher, like a reprint or the Kindle version or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about when he was coming up with the character of Jack Reacher and coming up with the idea for the series that, and I'm going to paraphrase paraphrase him badly here, but he basically said something along the lines of that people return to like characters like Matthew Scudder, for example, over and over again because it's far more about the character than it is the mystery or the story, and you do need a good mystery. You do need a good story.
Yeah.
But it's more that they want to see the character in new situations. Yeah, I want to get your take on that because
I'm big on character. That's really important to me. The only book I've considered doing a sequel to, and I actually started but stopped, was To Sleep Gently. The character Jack Dempster is really interesting to me. To me, he's just a very interesting character that I could maybe carry on for a few books. But we'll see. I've got a lot of other stuff going on at the moment. So yeah.
Just to get back to the book was called Face Offs.
Oh yeah.
Team ups.
Okay.
And if you had to put, we asked you before which character you would use if you could borrow from another writer. If you got a chance to collaborate with an existing writer to have one of your characters either team up or fight his character, who would you choose?
Oh, I would possibly Joe Lansdale. Which characters? Happen Leonard.
Yeah.
Jack Dempster or something like that could be interesting. I love everything Joe Lansdale's written.
He's a treasure, but yeah, Hap and Leonard those are just wonderful, wonderful books.
Brilliant, yeah, I love them. And that's I guess becoming a TV show.
Yeah, I heard that.
Stars, I think, or Sundance. I think it's Sundance. Really looking forward to that. So, hope that's true. I think it is.
Crime is so popular, not just in books, novels, short stories, but obviously TV, movies.
Mm-hmm.
In your opinion, what is it that keeps us humans coming back to mysteries? What fascinates us so much about it that we want to keep reading them? We want to keep watching shows.
That's a good question. I think people like puzzles.
Yeah.
I really think it's actually kind of that simple, at least at the moment. People like to be able to think, but they don't want to, this is no disrespect to anybody on the planet, they don't want to think too much. So
I know I do.
It's a good way to exercise their mind and keep you really interested. So yeah.
Guys, please interrupt me anytime with questions. So.
And cut me off anytime you want.
No, we're not going to do that.
Well, actually, I have a couple questions because I always find the process of writing fascinating because it's so different from all the authors we interview. They all have their own techniques. So, like, is there a set time of day that you write? You try and put so many words down a day. Are you like keeping up with deadlines or whatever, or just kind of wander off where the mood strikes you?
Currently, I have not kept up with deadlines. It's got me in a bit of trouble. But I like mornings. The problem is I'm not a morning person, but morning is the best time for me to write. And I like to write longhand, actually. I write on legal pads, and then I type it up as I go. But yeah, that's it. And do I have anything? I don't have anything special, any trinkets or anything. Mornings and longhand, and I usually shoot for about 1,500 words a day. Sometimes I don't make it, sometimes I go way over. But 1,500 words seems reasonable to me. That's my usual goal.
So on a perfect day, ideally, you're saying you would write those approximately 1,500 words in the morning and then go on and do whatever else you need to do for the day.
Yeah, and then maybe in the evening I often will pull out what I've written and go over it with a pen. That kind of thing, smooth some things out.
You said you write longhand most of the time?
Yeah, I've really been enjoying longhand the past couple of years. I don't know why. Just, I guess it's maybe feels a little more organic. I feel more connected to the story.
Yeah.
If I've got pen on paper as opposed to typing.
Now, I just love composition notebooks. You know?
Yes.
Now, part of the reason I love these puppies is because I can write, not spell, but write a lot faster than I can type. Because I'm one of those, you know, two fingers. I guess I'm lucky I'm two fingers. And other than feeling like you're closer to the work by using a pencil or a pen, any other reason you like it that way? You know, does the computer seem more distant to you?
Yeah, it's only been the past couple of years. I just sort of found I was connecting more with pen and paper than computer. The computer can be really distracting. It can be a real benefit, but you know, between Twitter and Facebook and Amazon and anything else, it's so easy to get distracted. And then I don't know how you guys are, but when I don't finish what I plan to do, I get really mad at myself and I beat myself up horribly. So yeah, pen and paper kind of solves that a bit. And I figure if I need to look something up, I'll go to a cafe and not bring my computer. I've got a smartphone, so if I really need to look something up, I've got that.
Right. Well, speaking of writing, I'm quoting here from another interview where you wrote, I've been directly told by several writers, including Neil Gaiman, Joe Lansdale, Dennis Lehane, write the books that you would like to read. I think that's really good advice. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I would agree with it. Because there's always books you're reading, and they seem, you might like it, but it seems to fall short somehow. Or you've got, I wish someone would write a story about, zombies taking over a medieval castle or whatever, and it's like, well, then why don't I write it? But if it's a story I want to read, no sense pestering other writers to do it. Just write the ones you want to write, the ones you want to read. And like I said, I have mixed feelings with all my work, but I still enjoy them enough to know that I definitely wanted to read it when I wrote it.
Right. That's coming from a place of passion as opposed to writing for some other reason.
Yeah.
What are you working on right now?
I'm finishing up a new novel. It's the longest novel I've written. The working title is Callback, and it's another suspense thriller kind of thing. And then we've been producing, Laurel and I have been working with one of the theater companies here to produce my father's musical Godson. And that's been a lot of fun. So a novel, working on producing the play, and then a couple things I actually am not allowed to talk about at the moment, but they're pretty exciting. So.
No, it sounds great. If I might follow up, is there a length that you prefer, word count wise, to work at? You like anywhere from a short story, like a 5,000 word short story, to a 90,000 word novels, or something in there that you find that is just sort of like your natural groove when you're writing, especially when you're writing your noir crime stuff.
Yeah, usually like 20 to 25,000 words. I like the novella. It's enough room for me to stretch out, but I also have to keep the story moving. And I know that I'm a writer that, I like to do stream of consciousness, but the biggest problem with that is sometimes you don't know when to stop. And pages and pages. You're like, I only really need these 3 sentences right here. So yeah, it's
excellent.
Not laughing at you, Trent. I'm just laughing at myself.
No, he's laughing at you. He laughs at all.
You can laugh at me.
No.
Well, all right. So moving over a little bit, you're a big fan of Halloween, I read. So, what are some of your, as it gets to this time of year, what are some of, besides the obvious, which we'll get into, do you have any favorite Halloween novels or October, autumn themed novels?
My dad's book, A Night in the Lonesome October.
Yeah.
That is...
I've heard of that book, yeah.
I've heard it's pretty good. I love that book. It's a great Halloween book. That one's special to me because that was the one book he was writing that he shared with me as he wrote it. There it is. That's a first edition, isn't it?
Yep, it's a first edition. Yep.
Very nice. Yeah, so I love that. And then I love reading Robert Bloch short stories around Halloween too.
A lot of what? Sorry.
Robert Bloch, his short stories.
Oh yeah.
I like reading a lot of those around Halloween.
Yeah.
Bloch is.
I consider him a short story master.
Did you get a chance to meet Gahan Wilson, who illustrated your father's book?
I have not. I would love to. That just hasn't happened. We're friends on Facebook, but I don't think we've ever said a word to each other. I have, the big collection, that 3-volume collection of his work, his Playboy cartoons.
Yes, I've got that.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thanks to Steve Berman.
If I were to wake up a billionaire in the morning, somewhere out in the universe, the first thing I would acquire is it was in Playboy. It was a full-page Gahan Wilson, and you're in an airplane, and out the window you can tell it's night. You can see the moon, and there's a railroad conductor walking down the aisle holding a lantern. And there's no caption. It's just one of those full pages of his, and always been my favorite illustration. It just blew my mind.
Yeah, he's amazing.
He is.
I've gone back and forth on getting one of his illustrations, maybe the one of Needle from Lonesome October tattooed somewhere on my body.
Yeah.
But I have not done that yet.
So, Joe, what you're saying is you read Playboy only for the Gahan Wilson cartoon, right?
Well, no. I started with Playboy because of the women didn't have any clothes on.
Oh, I've heard that too.
Oh, is that what the... Okay.
Yeah.
So
I could go into great detail about one particular, the very first time I saw Playboy.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Not too good.
But the magazine broadened his horizon. He got into other things.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Ultimately, it did. And everybody knows that Pulver's a stark-raising jazz wacko, and one of the Playboy helped there. The cartoons were great. I learned things about sex from the cartoons. The women were, a lot of them. And over a period of time, as I got a little older and actually got a couple of pieces of a brain that worked, there were some great interviews.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It actually does have some pretty decent articles and interviews at times. I don't read it regularly, but I do read it from time to time.
Oh, I haven't read it in decades, but as a teenager, if you could get near it, yeah.
As a teenager, that's thank you.
Yeah.
Well, getting back to A Night in the Lonesome October, you've got a great story about when your dad was writing that book that I was hoping you would share with us.
Which story would that?
Well, I personally only know of one. You included it in one of the introductions that you wrote for me. And I don't want to give away the ending, but basically, you talk about how much fun he was having
Yes.
writing it. Anything you want to share is fine. So.
That was, yeah, it was great to see because my dad was a writer the whole time. He'd become a professional writer full-time 10 years, I think, before I was born. So he was always in his office writing. But when he got sick, he started hanging out on the living room couch more. And that's when he started writing A Night in Lonesome October. And it only took a short time to just see him lighting up, like I'd never seen him light up before. And he was supposed to be writing Donner Jack, which Jane Linsgold finished later on, but he put it aside because Lonesome October just really, I guess, grabbed him by the balls and said, write me. And he was just having so much fun. You know, come knock on my bedroom door and, you know, share, you know, what do you think of this scene? And, you know, and that night we'd sit and we'd both drink, we'd split a 6-pack of Pepsi, and and he'd read me stuff from it, and we'd just talk about this and that, and it's just a lot of fun. And it was just so great to see him so happy, because I hadn't seen him that happy, especially about something he was writing in a very long time, if ever. So it was really great to see.
How long did it take him to write it?
Oh, he wrote it pretty quick. Probably say about somewhere between 4 and 6 months, closer to 4. I would say it was pretty short, from what I recall. That was probably the best time in my life I had with my father, was when he was doing that and writing Godson. Because we would just, it was the first time in my life I actually got to just hang out with him, kind of like guys, you know, just sit around and chat. Which we hadn't done much of for most of my life, so it was really pretty great experience.
How old were you when
at that time I would have been about 17, and yeah, our you know, our family was pretty dysfunctional, as most are, but you know, we didn't none of us were especially close. That's changed now, but I was glad that, because when he passed away I was 18, so I would have been 16 or 17 at that point. But I'm really glad I got to have that time with him, because I never had a whole bunch of father-son time with him, so it was really great to finally get that, especially before he passed away.
That's great.
I think I saw that Night in the Lonesome October, there's a new edition coming out tomorrow. Did I?
What was our new edition tomorrow?
Well, it said October. I'll tell you how I know, because my wife's a high school English teacher, and I was talking to her about having me on the show, and I said, you know what, actually, really, she teaches 9th grade English, and I said, you know, this is one of my favorite books that his dad wrote, and it was written for adults, but it's so accessible, it's deceptively simple, I think, are the words that I use. And I said, you know, if there's a book out there, in speaking personally, that you could put in front of a 9th grader to get them more interested in reading, you know, this would probably be one of those books.
Yeah. Well, you just tell me it's told from the point of view of Jack the Ripper's dog.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
That'll probably get a few people interested.
Yeah, well, as you can imagine, for a high school English teacher, it's an uphill battle.
Yeah.
Especially where we live, there's a lot of kids with a lot of challenges. So she goes, well, you have a copy, right? And I was like, well, I do and I don't. You gave me a copy, which I won't really talk about here. I do have a question about it, though, later. But I said, no, I did have a physical copy, but it burned up in our fire a few years ago, and I think that's one of the books that I forgot to reorder. And so I got on Amazon real quick and got on to order another copy of A Night in the Lonesome October, and I noticed that it had the, you know, the secondhand mass market paperback copies, and then it had this one that it said, I forget what the cover says, something about classics, rediscovered classics. That's what it was.
Yeah, it's Chicago Press, I think.
I don't remember that, but it said that it would be available. It's available October 5, and then it would ship it out to me then. So I thought I would ask. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have it, but that means nothing. I haven't had it very long, so I might have just gotten, authors' copies ahead of time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
But yeah, that's something I've been getting a little bit more involved with my father's estate. Not a whole lot, but a little bit, and trying to work some of those kinds of things out. But I did not know about that one. Or I'm wondering if maybe it's about to come out on Kindle.
I did not see that though. That was actually my question for you.
Okay, because I think there was a deal made for a Kindle version of that. But again, I'm not involved enough to know without having to go talk to people and look at papers to know for sure.
Yeah. No, I was just curious if you knew. I think that probably make a lot of people happy if and when it does become available on Kindle. And I also knew that I don't know to what extent, but I saw on Facebook that you were at least somewhat involved with Amber series, getting that on Kindle. Is that right?
Yeah. It's been a bit of a nightmare, but it's also going all right. First one went up and I had to pull it down because it was just riddled with typos, and it's just so embarrassing. I wish it had never gone up that way. I pulled it down and went through it line by line and corrected everything I possibly could. And then I did that with the Guns of Avalon, which of course was in much better shape. And so, yeah, but it took years because there had been a contract which no one could find, which we could not determine if this publisher had the ebook rights for the Amber series or not. And that went on for a very long time. And that's why they never come out until just recently they're starting to. A lot of it was just rights. We didn't, I don't like to speak ill of my mother, but she hasn't handled everything. Not everything. She's a little chaotic. So, yeah.
Like I said, I don't want to hug the questions. I know some of these other guys, and Laird especially has some questions on that front. I know you're a big fan of Roger Zelazny, Laird.
No, I was just really intrigued to hear. I mean, A Night in the Lonesome October is a special story. It actually is. Roger Zelazny was a big part of my family's literary life growing up, and for me and my two brothers, his work was really important. Got us, as I was saying, I was on a show here a couple weeks ago, and your dad got me through his work got me through some rough days in my childhood, and especially the This Immortal and the Amber series, the first 5, and Road Marks. I loved Road Marks, but I was a bit older. I guess I'm about 5 years older than you are, and so I was in my early 20s when Night in the Lonesome October when I read it, and I actually had to shake off your dad's influence because he kind of taught me how to write, especially in my teens. I was writing from the time I was 5, but I definitely had to trunk a lot of stuff in my my late teens up until my early 20s because he was such a powerful influence. And in retrospect, it's a wonderful thing. I was able to basically get a college course from reading his work, master's course, but that story is, with needles and snuff and Jack the Ripper. I mean, that blew my mind when I was like, wait a minute, this is Jack the Ripper. That's basically our hero here. But coming on here and hearing you talk about it, and that you were able to connect so deeply with him over that, and so close to the end of his life, that I got to tell you, man, that really touches me. That it makes a story that has always been. It was always in my top 5 of his works that I've loved. That's how I had no idea that it was also brought you guys so close together. That makes it all the more special. I'm glad that I was here to hear that. I'm glad you shared that with us.
Yeah, it was a very special time. Thank you for letting me share that. yeah, that was a very, very special time to me. It's the closest I ever got to be with my father was at that point. So.
Mm. It is absolutely endearing that you have that, and such a really marvelous work was produced while you and him were being so close.
Yeah.
I agree with Laird. All right, I'm the old guy here, so, and if we're going to talk about Roger Zelazny for a couple minutes, he's one of two writers that when I was a teenager, and I never had any plans to write. That was for people that had talent. But I was a voracious reader, and Auto da Fe is in the first volume of Dangerous Visions.
Yeah.
And the first page of John Ricci's City of Night made me reread it, and reread it, because I hadn't had come across language like that. And Auto da Fe, the beginning of that, the first 3 paragraphs, I mean, I read Dangerous Visions or was reading it and loving it. Still I do remember. Next paragraph, still I do remember. Third paragraph, still I do remember. It was the first time I ever came across, that I recall, repetition like that. And it's like, didn't know I was ever gonna call upon anything like that or have any use for it, but I found it absolutely, it stopped me in my tracks. It's like, keep going back to the same thing, you know. I mean, it's a great story, and you know, it's a marvelous piece of a benchmark anthology.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, he's one of those guys that it's like, wow. And of course, so often he used mythology as basis of his work, and I love mythology. And I'll skip Amber because everybody talks about Amber, but the beginning of Nine Princes in Amber was also revolutionary to me, because I thought I was reading a crime book for like 3-4 pages, and it's like, whoa, wait a minute now, because I mean, here's the copy I bought that I still have, which is, you know, the classic. I think this is the first edition paperback. You know, but we got a horse, we got a knight on a horse with a shield, you know, and you open the book, you know, and you know, you're reading the back. And of course, back then they didn't tell you all that much, which is a good thing.
Right.
And man, it's just like, wait a minute, what happened to the knight? What happened to the horse? What happened to the medieval?
It was a foul blow, about 3 inches below the bell.
But as much as I adore a lot of your father's work, Creatures of Light and Darkness I could talk about for an hour. This is it. I'm just one guy, you know. It was, what was this, 71? This is the puppy. All the others are, I mean, you know, we've been talking about incredible books, incredible piece of work. But this is the one. I was a huge Fritz Leiber fan. I was a huge Jack Vance fan. And this entered that to become, if Fafford and the Grey Mouser and Dying Earth were 2 pieces of a trinity, a trilogy, a pantheon, this was the third. I actually hate taking this off the shelf because it's getting old and yellow, and you know how a lot of these things are. I'm afraid the pages will fall out.
Fortunately, that's one that's about to be reissued.
Oh, okay, good. I would like a volume I could play with. But
Yeah,
ultimately,
I think it's the
I
same
mean,
people that put out
like I said, I'm older than
October.
you guys, and I was reading your father, as a teenager. Have you gone back? Have you revisited all your father's work? Um, what do you like? What don't you like? If anything?
Well, his prose is, I just love his prose. I love his imagination. I go back to Amber a fair amount. I go back to Lord of Light and My Name is Legion and Lonesome October. Those are ones that, for me, really stand out. And,
Amen.
I'm not quite sure about My Name is Legion, but there's something about it. It's just super cool. It's just really
Yes.
super cool.
I think that's, if I may dare say it, I think that might have been his best. For me, that was his best work. Those, what was it, 3 stories? Home is the Hangman, one that you can't pronounce because it's a dolphin.
Right.
Correct. But when Legion erased his record, the Nameless Detective erases his record, and then he sets forth. And there's a scene in, I forget which one of the 3, but he's talking to a very rich man, and the rich man is contemplating bringing the guards in to capture him and and possibly unmask him. And he goes over and he stands in front of I can't remember if it was a Van Gogh, but it was some flowers. And then everything settles down, and they agree upon terms. He's going to leave, and he goes, "You were going to kill me a minute ago, weren't you?" And he says, "Yeah, I was thinking about it." Legion does. And he says, "Even with the men outside, our men outside?" He goes, "Yes." He goes, "Why did you stand by the flowers?" The guy just kind of smiles. There was something about that spot. That was just classic Roger Zelazny. And he revisits, and I think it's one of my favorite things about your dad's writing is that he comes back time and time and again to these grace notes and signatures and themes. Like in, if I recall, in Jack of Shadows, it starts off with him being beheaded. Your father was very fascinated with the hero, and possibly this is a Christian thing, or a religious kind of a thing, spiritual thing, but the hero being killed and yet returning.
Right.
Because you see that in Lord of Light's my favorite of all these things. Lord of Light is my favorite, probably my first or second favorite novel of all time. Any novel, any genre. But he comes back to that. Sam is killed at the end of the first part of the novel, and then he returns, or in the middle of the novel, I guess, and he returns. And you see that in Jack of Shadows. You kind of see that in some of the Amber stuff too. He really returns to that. But not only that, but Random did not kill Corwin at some point because he was standing on his favorite rug. There's always these little touches that he would layer back in. And since we're talking about A Night in the Lonesome October, it really dovetails with Road Marks, because Road Marks is a ensemble cast from history. You've got the Strangler, you've got Jack the Ripper, you have Doc Savage, you have all these epic figures from our history and from mythology and from literature. And it seems like, and that one was written, I believe, in the 70s,
Yeah.
or early 80s. But Right. And you come back to that, and it's a completely different story. But he comes back, 20 years later, and writes A Night in the Lonesome October, which uses that idea of this ensemble cast that you never really name any of the characters. You just have to sort of figure out who they are as you go along. And it's like at that point, he had, I don't want to say perfected it, because Roadmark is a very accomplished novel. I mean, he's come into his own by the time he writes that. But nonetheless, it's like he distills some of that and says, "Oh, but I'm going to do something completely different with it, and maybe even raise it another level."
Yeah. That's I was talking with my dad one night during that period of time, and I brought up I'd watched a documentary on the Beatles, and they talked about how the song being for the benefit of Mr. Kite, they'd taken some carousel music and cut it all up into little pieces, threw it all in the air, and rejoined it back together, which I thought was cool. And I told my dad this, and he said, "Oh, that's what I did with Road Marks."
Ah.
They had this linear story, and then all the other chapters he just kind of threw in the air and picked them at random.
Okay.
According to him, which.
No, that actually there's a linear thread in it. I've read that book multiple times, and it does have. I mean, I'm glad you said that, because I always wondered if because there's this disjointedness to it, and I wondered if he did I forget what you call it. There's a term, but kind of like stitched it together out of order in certain places.
Mm-hmm.
But it works nonetheless, because the way that what the story is about doesn't really demand a linear narrative. But that's A Night in Lonesome October has some odd. Because I was actually going over it again recently, and there are some weird narrative jumps in it, and I'm not sure how to, even I've read that book like 4 times, and I still find myself, there's a point in the middle where all of a sudden the narrative actually like twists back on itself, which is another hallmark of his. If you like Light as the Darkness, he does that. He goes, you start off and you're in the future, then you go in, but he doesn't tell you that you're actually right away. He doesn't tell you that you're going back. When I was 15, I think the first time I read it, I actually I was like, what's happening? And so that's another thing that he does. He just, you start off in one spot, and then he'll shift you narratively through time and space, and it's up to you to, put the pieces together.
Yeah, like in this Immortal, you have to figure out where you're at and what the hell is going on, because he doesn't bother to say that you're in the future and these blue-skinned aliens are, in charge of the planet.
No, I love that. I love that. It gave a sense of the verisimilitude. The world is a real world. We're not going to stop and explain every little bit to you. This is a story about the people in the world, and you're going to have to put it together.
I actually developed road marks and My Name is Legion, both for television for the Sci-Fi Network. Maybe I shouldn't have said who. But neither one worked, mostly because in the end, it was the Sci-Fi Channel, and they liked the name, but they weren't so sure they liked the actual story.
They're not even sure they like science fiction, I don't think.
I'm okay with it not working out, honestly. Sci-Fi.
He seemed like he kept coming. He kept coming back to it had characters that in at least several books that were immortal.
Yeah, he was big into immortality.
Yeah.
Part of him that almost believed he may have been part immortal, and that's not to sound crazy or make him seem foolish or anything. And when he was diagnosed with cancer, he was certain he was going to beat it, and that was just a really hard time. And then he was sure he was going to beat it for so long, just not even concerned. And then it caught up with him, and we lost him. But he was always talking about immortals, and so I can't help wondering if a part of him had convinced himself somewhere along the lines that he may be, or...
What kinds of things would he say? When you say he was always talking about it, alluding to it?
He'd still be talking about, how we'd be doing like now. He's been dead 20 years. He wasn't even concerned with the cancer for the longest time. So, I'm going to beat it. I kind of thought, well, crap, I hope so. I'm really hoping for... I don't know. It's a weird situation, but, I've lost several friends to cancer just this year, and it's the people who can really look at the reality and say, I'm going to try, but I might not make it. Whereas, my father was just sure, there was never any doubt in his mind, which saddens me, actually.
One of my favorite movies, The Man from Earth. Rick, you'll probably remember the name, Mr. Encyclopedia. I don't. Jerome Bixby, I do remember. He wrote that Methuselah character in the original Star Trek series, if I remember correctly. And on his deathbed, he wrote what would become the screenplay with his son, or The Man from Earth. And The Man from Earth, if you haven't seen it, is about this guy who was basically born 40,000 years ago. Yeah, he's a college teacher. Yeah, you haven't seen that? It's a great little science fiction movie, and it's definitely worth picking up. And so every 10 years he picks up and moves, and he's about to do that when the story opens, and he's about to leave, and his friends from college surprise him and come over to his cabin and want to give him a sending off party. So he gives them this hypothetical scenario about what if a guy survived through some kind of freak of nature for the last 35, 40,000 years, and they're not quite sure whether to believe him or not.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by immortality in fiction too, so that's why I asked about
The Man from Earth.
The Man from Earth. Yes.
Cool.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite movies. And I don't think there's any action in it whatsoever. So.
That's all right.
Yeah.
When I want explosions, I'll watch a movie that I'll watch The Expendables if I need explosions.
Yeah, no explosions, no action, nothing. Basically, an hour and a half or close to 2 hours of conversation, but it's fascinating.
That's great.
So.
Sounds up my alley.
Oh, good. Yeah, well, you'll have to tell me what you think of it when you get a chance to see it.
Yeah.
Well, I know you have to do some things in a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any more questions for Trent? Before we let him go here?
No, just Trent, it's a pleasure to finally be able to talk to you, and
really nice.
Thank you. You're a great writer. Just thank you for sharing your time and these anecdotes with us. It means a lot.
Thank you so much for having me. It really means a lot to me to be here. So I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for being on, Trent. Thanks for taking the time. I really appreciate it. You're a good guy, extremely talented writer.
Request. Thank you, and thank you all for hanging out with me.
Thanks, Trent.
Absolute pleasure.
All you have to do is close your browser, and it'll kick you out. So, thanks, man. Talk to you soon. I hope.
Bye.
Bye.
I really admire people who are genuine and sincere, and Trent is one of those people. Just a really good guy.
Nice guy.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for letting me be on, because his dad means a lot to me, and I've been Facebook friends with him for a few years. We talked a little, but I had no idea what kind of person he. You just don't know, and he's a really sweet man.
Yeah, he is.
Very, like you said, genuine. There's no artifice. He's just a good guy. So
yeah.
I'm glad that I was on here. So thank you.
Oh, thanks for being here, Laird. Okay, I got a few more things to go before we hang up. Laird, you're more than welcome to stay or go, whatever you want to do, too. I know you got all deadlines. So, what are you holding up there, Rick? Oh, Ends with Nightmares.
Ends with Nightmares, yes.
Lois, edited by Lois Gresh, I believe.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to read it. I'm not getting a chance to read for pleasure right now. I'm reviewing some stuff for Locus, and I'm reading for World Fantasy Award, and I'm writing all this stuff. So I haven't had a chance. I need to go through that though. But I'll have to recuse myself anyway. But I might as well read it. But yeah, she seemed like from what I've seen of it, it seemed like it's a good anthology. So it's all, like I said, it's always tricky though for me to be in those, because I don't want to write. I've only written in my entire career. I've only written 2 actual Lovecraft universe stories. So like for this one, I cheated. I wrote about a creature that loves Lovecraft and wants to recreate one of his, recreate Innsmouth for his own, like a diorama kind of a situation. So I kind of twisted the rules there, but anyway, it was fun to be. It was fun to be in it. And there's a bunch more Lovecraftian. I know that's what you guys really like. There's a bunch more of those coming out this year, and I think couple of them might be actually pretty good. Ellen, I'm writing one for Ellen for next year and whatnot. So it's a good time if you like that.
Well, yeah, yes and no. I mean,
Autumn Cthulhu, there's something Autumn Cthulhu thing.
Something like, I don't know. Some guy edited that. Yeah, I do, but I'm for a guy who runs a website called Lovecraft Easy, and I'm more into cosmic horror than
me too.
prestige. Did that just come out, Rick? Is that just newly available, or?
I got it before Necronomicon.
Oh, did you? Okay.
I thought the official hard release was at Necronomicon. That's where I got my contributor's copy.
And I just received in the mail yesterday part 2 of Joshi's Madness of Cthulhu, duology, whatever. It was one big anthology split into 2 parts. So part 1 came out I believe last fall, and then part 2, I have a story in it. But there's a ton of Caitlin Kiernan and Greg Bear and Resnick Tam and a bunch of people have worked in the 2 anthologies. I'm not sure Neil Gaiman. There's it's kind of a who's who of.
No, I don't remember Neil being in.
I could be wrong.
He was in number 2, but he wasn't in number 1.
Well, he might be in number 2. I have to go look at the thing. But the point is, there's like 16 or 18 in each one, so it's like over 30.
Laird, I don't think you. Since this is just a little niche and you're off doing your own thing, I tried to get. About 5 years ago, it became obvious that there's this avalanche of material in our little genre. And I just sort of guesstimated, and this is not counting novels or single-author collections, I got a list of them somewhere, but as of August, from 2010, in multi-author anthologies, there are at least 75 Cthulhu Mythos or Lovecraftian anthologies published.
I think I saw that, yeah.
It's ridiculous. It's like, who could keep up?
But only one Autumn Cthulhu coming.
No. Well, there's only one, A Lonely and Curious Country, which is the one you all ought to jettison everything else for to read.
Of course. Yeah.
No, the funny thing is, I'm probably in like 25 of them at this point. But the thing is I don't consider myself a Lovecraft. I acknowledge Lovecraft as a huge influence. And I don't kick. If people want to call me a Lovecraftian writer, it's fine. But I don't write Cthulhu mythos. I sure, but even like in this, like I said, even in this the Spear Sun story that I wrote, I cheated. But
it's a word. It's a means of grouping things.
Oh yeah, it's like
it doesn't mean.
But what I meant was I don't actually write stories like Derlethian or Lovecraftian. You won't see Cthulhu mentioned too often. I did mention, although the story that I just wrote, I wrote it for Journal Stone. It's a weird situation, but there's that Gods of HPL Lovecraft that's coming out.
Yeah,
I don't know. That may be pretty good. There's some good names in there, but I wrote.
Aaron French is a good editor.
He is, and I think he's done. So Adam Neville's in it. I mean, there's some people in there, and Neville's good, but. I was assigned. Actually, I was able to pick. I got a pick, and so I picked Azathoth. But once again, I cheated. Because it's tied into Beer Sun. It's not about Azathoth. Azathoth's in it, yeah. Something to masquerade. Hey, call me what you like. Santa Claus, Azathoth, whatever. But I'm pretty excited about that one. But the thing is, they're releasing my novelette will be in there, but it's split. It's 10,000 words, but I'm finishing up another 15,000 words. It's the second half of it. Like you can read that in French's anthology, and you're fine. Or we're going to release it. We're going to release both parts of it as a standalone novella at the same time. He's Christopher Payne's trying for Journal Stones is trying a marketing thing. So yeah, so it's
So are the words "to be continued" in big letters at the end of it?
No, because you can read the way that I wrote it. You can definitely just read the. You could just pick up the anthology and my stories in the middle of it somewhere, and you can read it. Yeah. But the way that I have if you buy the novella, which is going to be a standalone thing, there's a part. It's like book 2, and there's a whole bunch more stuff that happens after it. that ties a lot of loose ends up and stuff. But yeah, so there's a lot of stuff going on right now. I still think you know, there's more to be done. I think Ellen has. I think you actually, some of the stuff that you've taken for Autumn Cthulhu, this, you know, looking at like what you took from me and John, kind of messes with the definition. And Ellen Datlow definitely, if you look at her, you know, she's got the right idea. Some people scoff, like, if you're gonna do Lovecraft, why bulk with tentacles? I'm like, well, because everybody else is doing tentacles. It's perfectly fine to have a Lovecraft anthology that covers other areas that the guy, you know, was known for. The guy had a huge portfolio. It wasn't all cosmic horror, and it wasn't all elder gods. So, like I said, my favorite Lovecraft story remains the picture, the picture in the house. Yeah. So, there's a lot of stuff going on right now, and I think some of it's probably pretty terrible, but that's the Sturgeon's law in effect. There's also that 10% is going to be, there's going to be a lot of material in that 10% that we're all going to enjoy. I mean, even with just the 10%, we can't keep up. It's an avalanche right now, and I don't know how long it's going to last. I think it's kind of like the zombie craze. You know, zombies will always be with us. Vampires, all that. I think Lovecraft from here on out is probably always going to be with us. But everything's cyclical, so we'll see, how much longer this sort of saturation with Lovecraftian, with the cosmic horror aspect, how much longer that persists as like a craze.
Well, I've had several conversations with Joe, and several people recently have used the analogy of a train. The train's lifting off. Train's going. Some people will be left. Other people won't. But Joe and I don't want to speak for Joe, but the conversation we had, we see it more of a wheel, spokes on a wheel of the fiction. Cosmic horror is one of the spokes on the wheel. There's other spokes too.
Right, and it's constantly going around.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everything's radiating out from whatever center. So cosmic horror is this, and Aikman is that, and there's just so many spokes coming off of this thing we call weird fiction.
Well, and there's the other. It can be frustrating to be caught in it or in the crossfire, but there's also the natural reaction, the pushback effect. Everything that we do. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir with you guys, but writers, artists in general, are always in dialogue with whomever came before, whether they're contemporaries or whether they're dead. You're always, whether you're a singer, a painter, a sculptor, or a writer, you are actor. It doesn't matter. You are in dialogue with your contemporary, mentor figures and with the dead. And the bottom line is, right now, Lovecraft is ascendant. He's casting a huge shadow over the current activities, and some of us, like myself, I'm actually trying to ride a wave and go off in my own direction without abandoning the scene. But, to mutate, to do my own thing. I can't constantly be doing the same thing. I mean, I need to advance as a writer. There are other authors, though, or artists, I should say, who are pushing against, reacting negatively to the popularity of Lovecraft, which, when mud gets thrown at the people who are doing Lovecraftian work, can be unpleasant. It's not unexpected. This is a natural part of the process, and so it's a germination kind of a thing. So you've got guys like Scott Nicolay, for example, who is very publicly anti-Lovecraft, but he's anti-Lovecraft in the way that Mieville was anti-Tolkien. He needed Tolkien to push off against and say, fuck that guy. Look what I'm doing. But he wouldn't be able to do that he'd just be floating in zero gravity without Tolkien as sort of like to rebound from. And so I'm seeing that effect with Lovecraft, is that it's basically love him and, slavishly love him and be emulating him, use him as a starting point and be doing something else, or reject him utterly. It doesn't matter. That his fiction his presence is causing quite a sort of a turmoil in the field right now, and I think overall, petty bickering aside, in a very positive way, you're going to see a lot of great weird fiction, being done as in reaction to this.
Yeah. Well, I consider myself a fan of weird fiction, and cosmic horror is just Lovecraftian horror is just one small part of it.
That's right.
So maybe a big part, but it's part of it. It's not. It's not the whole thing.
It's right. It's not the thing.
Yeah. No, it's not. I told the story before, but I was having lunch with Sandy Peterson a year or so ago, and he started talking about just naming up names of Lovecraftian gods and everything, and I got this blank look on my face. He's like, "Well, you know all this stuff." And I was like, "I really know next to nothing, actually. I don't. It's not about that for me. It's about the weird fiction of the cosmic horror element." So, not to belittle his interest.
No, but that's a specialized interest, and there's a lot more. Hey, man, I'm a big Aikman fan, and so I'm also an M.R. James fan. I'm a Stephen Graham Jones fan. I'm a Pulver fan. So Livy Llewellyn. I mean, there's a lot of different things being done. So my point wasn't that he was the end-all, be-all, just that because of this sort of ascendance of this particular author, we're going to be seeing a lot of it's very fertile ground right now, and it's being churned up because of this. Because of the popularity of this type of writing at this moment. And like I said, I'm just very curious to see where, how much longer it lasts. Because I do think I can't help but feel like it's cresting. So we'll see.
Yeah. The tide has to go out here at some point. You're absolutely right about that. But it's fun. The great work that's been produced or ignited by Lovecraft or Lovecraftian themes or subject, and there's still great work coming. That's just a joy to read. And you mentioned Livia, there's someone who, like yourself, when she's dipping her toes in that pond, it's great gifts we're receiving. Letters to Lovecraft. There was a lot of things that to enjoy in that particular book, and we're we see it in this and we see it in that. But I agree. We've hit a heavy saturation level, and how much water will the sponge ultimately hold?
Well, if you'd have told me 3 or 4 years ago that all the people who were calling Lovecraft using would be, I wouldn't have believed it. And each week I keep thinking, okay, that's plenty of people, and literally 900 to 1,000 people a week are in each new people per week following the site, and I would not have. I'm not to my horn. My point is, I wouldn't have thought there were 200,000 Lovecraft fans in the country. Much less that it would keep growing like that.
I mean, everything from Cthulhu being on The Simpsons or whatever.
Yeah.
All of that as Lovecraft or Lovecraftian or Cthulhu and tentacles and enters popular culture in the mass market.
What I hope is that some of these people will actually take the next step in their level of interest, and then maybe actually start, purchasing more books that will support the authors that will keep them writing. I'm always interested in keeping the writers writing because that's the only way I get new stuff to enjoy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, you never know if one of those fans gets the bug, and starts writing on their own, and then who knows what we'll get.
Oh yeah, down the road, it's an absolute given that there's going to be X number of writers, and I won't be here to see it, but at some point that read a Laird Barron story in an anthology and loved it, and read another one, and then started reading Laird's collections. And, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years from now, there's going to be incredible stuff produced in the same manner that Laird was reading Zelazny, and that got in him, and inspired him and was fuel for him. Down the road, Laird's the exact same entity. He's going to be held up by future writers.
I don't know. You always hope as an author.
But I mean, already, with Children of Old Leech, look at how many of us, have you on a pedestal, in a certain way. And we're your contemporaries. We know you. We associate you. We get to hang out with you. Not often enough, I'd like to insert that. So it's just inevitable that what's just on the page at some point becomes influential, more deeply influential than it is now.
Yeah, Rick?
Your work continues to grow.
Sorry, I think Rick wanted to say something too.
Oh, go ahead, Rick.
Rick, I think you might be frozen or muted or something.
He's muted. I see him talking.
Oh, I don't. He's frozen on my screen.
Oh, he's moving a little on my screen, but...
let me type something at him real quick. Like, 1, 2, reboot. There we go. I thought he'd been more quiet than usual. I see him talking now, but I don't hear what he's saying.
But I don't hear him.
Dang it. Well, thanks, Joe. I appreciate that. The biggest compliment I ever get is periodically I get a note from a fan who say I started writing again because I was reading your stuff, or I was reading Joe's stuff, or John Langan's, and I'm reading you guys, and it got me writing again. To me, that's among the biggest things people could say. Nicest things. So
have somebody you don't know out of the blue tell you you've inspired them. Wow.
Yeah.
Who would have thunk it? Not me, because I never intended to do this. It's a great feeling, and it's a great privilege. It's a really great privilege.
I agree.
Rick, can you hear us now?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we can. I'm sorry, what did you want to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that there were a lot of writers who start off writing something that maybe have a close connection to Lovecraft's mythos, and then they kind of branch out and create their own mythology, and they're only peripherally linked to the mythos.
Right.
F. Paul Wilson is an excellent example. When I first read Stephen King's The Stand, you can see a lot of parallels between Randolph Flagg and Nyarlathotep.
Yeah.
Yes,
and then as the
absolutely.
series progresses, he goes off in a totally different direction with Flagg.
Yeah.
That's a great. That's a brilliant catch, because Flagg and Nyarlathotep. And I wonder. I have no idea if that's what he intended, maybe subconsciously, because I'm sure he was reading Lovecraft back in the day. That's a good one. That is a good one.
He says in the novel that Nyarlathotep is an alias of Flagg.
That's right. See, I forgot that. There you go.
Well, we actually did a show, Laird, like a year or two ago, and I think the title of this show was Lovecraftian Themes and Lovecraftian Stories by Stephen King, and we went through them and we found quite a few, really.
That's cool.
I was saying Flagg is very different by the time you end with him in the Dark Tower series. You wouldn't think of him being like Nyarlathotep at all.
See, I've read so much Stephen King, but I've not read the Dark Tower series. You think I would enjoy that?
Yeah, I never read it either, Mike.
That connects everything.
Really?
But see, I don't even know if I care that it's connected. I want to know, is it a good, fun narrative to read? Like, I really recently enjoyed Joyland. Super read. I really liked Revival and From a Buick 8. But
Oh, yeah.
I didn't like Doom McKee. You know, it's like I don't like All a King. So
You did or you did not like Doom McKee?
No, it was fair. Okay.
See, I like Doom McKee because I like stories about broken people, you know, and what do they do with that afterwards, you know.
Well, Gunslinger is ingenious.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like the whole, those are 7. It's fine. I like some better than others. The Gunslinger is an ingenious piece of fiction of any author, any genre. That is an absolute masterpiece of fiction, I think.
Is that the first one?
Yes.
Yeah.
I absolutely. Part of it is my baggage. You know, I tell this to people all the time. It's why you can't. I tell writers all the time, be careful about reading too much into reviews, even intelligent reviews, because reviews are. We bring so much baggage into, you know, into what we watch, what we read, what we listen to, but especially fiction. You know, you are what you read. You are your lived experience, and sometimes that really contaminates, and for good or ill, what you're reading. And the Gunslinger resonates with my childhood quite a bit. Not the the knight errant aspect, but just some of the brutality that I experienced growing up, and some of just sort of the behaviors of my dad and my uncles and whatnot. And I got to tell you, to this day, the use of David the Hawk by the young would-be gunslinger to defeat the arms master. I forget what the arms master's name was, but basically, you go call him out, and you better be ready. You better be able to defeat him, otherwise you're exiled. And so he had trained the guy's own hawk. You can choose your weapon. And he says, "I choose David." And he had secretly trained that vicious bird for weeks, and then killed him in the process. The bird died for him. Stephen King, every now and then he reaches down deep, and I think he always writes from the heart, but he also writes from the 12-year-old kid perspective, of picking lizards and scabs. That is from the heart, but it's from the heart in a mature, horrifyingly mature way. He uses a kid, but this is a mature, old soul sort of revelation. That you will use love, you will sacrifice love, and an innocent for a greater good. And to this day, as a 45-year-old horror writer, every now and then I think of that as I'm falling asleep, and it gives me the chills. He really returned to that time and again, the idea of honor and sacrifice, but throughout the series, but in a very human and humane fashion. And I don't even know if he knew what he was doing. I think he was on fire. I think the muse was very strong in him when he wrote, especially that first installment. I think he reached beyond himself. I think he overachieved. And I don't even mean on the sentence level. I just mean the concept and these haunting images that he created.
Well, like I said, I've read so much King, but I have not read that, so it sounds like I need to pick it up.
Yeah, read The Gunslinger at least and see what you think.
Yeah, I've always thought of Stephen King as Neil Young. I can read something, and I didn't care for this one, but the next classic is don't ever think he's done. Don't ever think that he can't pull out one of the greatest things ever done with the next one.
Well, he's only getting better because Revival was. I
haven't
thought
read
extremely
Revival
well
yet. That's high on my radar.
Yeah, it's horrifying too, but it's very well written.
Did you read Joyland, Mike?
I just could not get into that one. I've started a couple times, and maybe I'll try again, but no, I haven't read that one.
Okay, I really liked it, but then I like kind of stories about carnivals.
Oh, carnivals are great, man.
Well, you should check out this Bradbury story book I read one time.
Bradbury. Oh, is that some new writer?
Bradbury.
Yeah.
If he keeps at it, then I think he might be something someday. Yeah.
Oh, he
Someone
might have
needs
a
to
little
write a song
talent.
about him.
Well, actually, not only him, but did you guys know there's a Night in a Lonesome October song?
There's a
It's
song?
it's on YouTube. If you go on YouTube, you search for Night in a Lonesome October song, I think is what I did. This guy basically sitting there with a guitar, and it's actually pretty good. He wrote this ballad about Jack and Needles and all these guys. And it's pretty neat. But yeah, what Bradbury song are you talking about?
You're kidding me, right?
I'm blanking on it. Are you talking about that one that girl?
Yeah, Ray Bradbury. It's the dream of every author.
I didn't know if that was another one. Yeah.
Oh, that's a great, yeah.
It's a great song. It was.
And a wonderful sentiment.
Song about me. You know.
I just hope they don't wait until I'm 8 or 90.
They changed the pronoun you.
There we go. We'll get all over social media and we'll tell women that it's high time that there's a I wanna blank Laird Barron.
Yeah, it won't be blank me. It'll be blank you.
Yeah, you know, Steve Bradbury, he's been writing since the 40s, you know, way before any of us were born, successful the whole time. But when he knew he really made it was when that girl performed that song.
That was the confirmation. But gentlemen, I have to bail on you. I need to get back to trying to fight back these deadlines. So
no problem. Thank you for being here, Larry. Appreciate it.
Absolutely wonderful getting to talk to you, Laird.
And like I said, it was a great show tonight, and it was nice talking to you guys. So hopefully we'll do this again.
Thanks. You too. Have a good night, Larry.
All right, gentlemen.
Thanks, brother.
Have a good night, you guys.
You too.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep, we can now.
Okay.
So before I forget, well, a couple things before I forget, but I think there's only like 10 days left on this. And I don't promote very many Kickstarters, but Robert Levy is doing a Kickstarter for the audiobook version of A Glittering World, Joe. I don't know if you knew about this. I think you did. I think you do. But
is that a good book?
Some guy told me it was.
Oh.
So,
he's crazy though, that guy.
He is.
I remember talking to him in the mirror, and he thought that was like one of the best things he read all year.
Well, Google A Glittering World Kickstarter, I suppose. I'm pretty sure it's Kickstarter, not Indiegogo. And he's still got a little ways to go. I mean, he's getting there, but I mean, I think it would be great to have this thing on audio. So that's about all I know, but I wanted to direct the audience there. And if this is October the 4th, so I guess it's going to be up until October the 12th, 13th, 14th, somewhere around in there. I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah, well, I keep sharing the link on Facebook.
The other thing about Robert Levy is that, now if you look at the Lovecraft Easing talk show page right now, it shows that he's going to be on the show on December 13th, but he actually sent me an email an hour or two ago, and he found out he's going to be out of town on the 13th. So we're either going to do it on the 20th. I'll update the page to reflect this when I hear back from him. We'll either get him here on the 20th or sometime in January. But he's going to be on the show. Paul Trimbley is going to be on the show on January the 10th.
Cool.
So
both really nice guys, brilliant writers.
And that Stephen King guy, I think he likes that Paul Trimbley guy's book. What I heard.
I don't think there's anybody who hasn't read Head Full of Ghosts that didn't like it.
Well, I haven't read it yet, so that gives me time to read it before January the 10th.
I'm not going to ruin it for you, but I'm just saying I don't think I've seen a review or mention of it that didn't rave. So maybe that Stephen King guy does know something.
It's possible. Possible.
Yeah. You know.
Yeah.
He might have to, you know, put out Dance Macabre #2 just so that the Head Full of Ghosts gets its own chapter.
Anyway, I was thinking about it. I want to let everybody know that they're going to be on the show. Guys. And I don't know if anybody out there is familiar with alternative reality gaming. I'm sure you are, Joe. You being up with the gaming community and everything.
Yeah, I'm so into games. Yeah.
I know you are. So, but let me get through this. I'll try and get through this without you ruining it for me. So, no, alternative reality gaming is not something I can explain very well, but it's using the real world partially as part of the game. So there's this game called The Black Watchman, and it's got some Lovecraftian elements, some other elements to it, and depending on what level you are in the game, you can just basically play it on your computer through email, or you can. It's sort of like LARPing in a way, only it's a lot better. The LARPing is just sort of play acting. This is you're actually part of the game. Like with The Black Watchman, I know that if you're in one level of the game, you'll get like phone calls and secret texts in the middle of the night. Like you're part of this mystery that you have to solve. And so we're going to talk to those guys too. I'm just naming a few upcoming guests.
Do you really get those? I mean, do people actually call you?
Yeah. Well, not me personally. I haven't played the game, but yeah.
I would be a little leery of that. That's getting a little too. Sounds like a Ramsey Campbell horror plot.
Yeah. Well, go to www.blackwatchman.com. Anybody who listens to this wants to check it out later. I'll also link to it from the talk show page at Lovecraft Easy. But that's just one level. They go up a level above that too, where yeah, I don't know. You have to. They've done their season 1. Not that you still can't get involved with the game. You can at some level, but then they're about to start a season 2 of the game. So I basically said all that I understand about it, but these guys will explain it to us more. I find the whole concept kind of fascinating.
One thing I wanted to mention: Mark Laidlaw is coming out with a new novel called White Spawn.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Publishing. PS Publishing is going to put it out.
What's it about?
I just read briefly the summary, and all I know from quickly reading it is there's a character named Thor in it, who's not the Marvel Thor.
And everybody who's paying any attention to us on these shows.
Nobody. That would be
Mark Laidlaw. Mark. Get whatever Mark Laidlaw you can get your paws on. He is so undervalued and underexposed.
Yeah.
He is, whether it's the 37th Mandala, or Lang in Lovecraft Unbound, or any one of a number of other things I could mention. Amazing writer. Utterly amazing.
Joe, you have his email. You should see if he can be on the show sometime.
Oh, I have his email, yeah.
Well, why don't you see if he'd be interested at all?
It should be. I mean, he's one of these game guys. He invented one of these huge games, or was co-inventor, or whatever. Yeah, I'll talk to him about it. He'd be great to have on here. Okay. And then I could just blubber, you know, like, wow, Mark Laidlaw, wow. Hey, yeah. I can wear my Laidlaw t-shirt.
Just when you're talking to him, look at the schedule on the talk show page, and you'll know what's kind of open, what isn't. At this point, we're looking at January.
Okay.
Forward somewhere around.
Yeah, that would you know, I've traded emails with him and Facebook messages, and we're friends on Facebook and whatnot, and we've had exchanges, but I've never talked to him.
Yeah.
He's a great writer. He's sharp as a tack. And you being so into gaming, you'll probably know in a heartbeat, if I can think of what the name of it is. Some computer game I actually think it was some big game changer 20 years ago or something. But you know how I don't know anything about gaming, so.
Oh, you know what? We never even mentioned the giveaways. Let's do Matt. Show them your giveaways, and Matt's giveaways will be for the people who watch later this week, not people who are watching live. So yeah, go ahead, Matt.
Okay, now again, these are not Lovecraftian per se. I am sort of like trying to shuffle shelves downstairs, so who knows what we're going to come up with. But
yeah, in other words, your wife told you to get rid of some books.
I didn't say that, okay? This is an anthology called Mighty Unclean by Dark Arts Books from 2009.
Are those all stories about you?
Yeah, basically. But it's 4 authors. Each wrote 4 stories. Gemma Files, Cody Goodfellow, Mort Kessel, and Gary Brownback. So, pretty good collection. And then I have an advanced reader's copy of Pallid Light, a zombie story by William Jones back when he was in his pomp in like 2008. It is signed by Mr. Jones, but it's got this on the back, this sticker that says advanced reader copy.
All right.
But those are the 2 books I have today, and I'm afraid I've got to run because.
No problem. Thank you, Matt.
I want to eat or something. I don't know.
Yeah, every day. It never stops.
I had a horse that died just as soon as I trained it to live without food, but go on, you. All right.
Thanks, Matt.
Take care, Matt.
All right, so if you want those 2 books, that means you're watching or listening to this later, either on YouTube or listening to the podcast version, and I'll do that drawing, let's say, sometime early evening, late afternoon Friday, so between now and Friday if you're listening to that. And this is October the 4th right now. As far as the people who are watching live, I said I would give away a copy of The Night in the Lonesome October and a copy of Butterfly Potion by Trent. So, whatever title.
Anybody out there into noir and crime?
Yeah.
Trent. I love Trent's work. I think him and Pierce Hansen are a couple of really great newer guys doing this stuff. A lot of truth on those pages. Stuff really hits home. Butterfly Potion is, if you got a thing for crime, you want that, folks.
Yeah, Trent really, you've used this phrase before, Trent really does bleed on the pages.
Yes, he does.
Really does. And it's good stuff.
It's one of the things I really love about his writing is, a lot of writers make it real easy to suspend belief while you're reading it. With Trent, you don't even need to. It's just like it feels. It doesn't read real. It feels real. And we know what a fanatic I am about what I feel is coming off the page.
Yeah. Well,
it's hard in there.
If you want either of those 2 books and you're watching live, or if you're watching this later and you want the books that Matt mentioned, please put the name of the book in send me an email. I'll give you the email address here. Put the book title in the subject, and then say whatever you want in the body of the email, and the email address to send it to, and I'll use random.org to choose the live winners tomorrow morning. And those who are listening or watching later, sometime late Friday. Email address is lovecraftezprizes@gmail.com. Lovecraft, EZINEPRIZES @gmail.com. And I will do that at the appropriate times. So, let's do something else. Yeah, go ahead, Rick.
Well, if you have something else to give away, but do we want to get into comic book TV shows?
Oh, yes, we do. Are you kidding me? Yeah, because I sent you that email about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I like the first 2 seasons, but now I'm really liking it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's finally caught. Sometimes a show takes its 3rd season to come all together. Star Trek: The Next Generation was like that.
Yeah. And The Flash is starting on Tuesday night, I think.
Yes, and then Arrow.
Is Arrow the same night?
Arrow would be Wednesday.
Okay. And Supernatural is Wednesday too, with, as I mentioned before, a possible, don't shoot me if it doesn't happen, but possible cosmic horror element that I think they could end up doing very, very well. So, new show stuff. You know what? What happened was I started watching Agents of Shield, the first episode of season 3 the other day, Rick. Then I'm like, I watched the first 3 or 4 minutes. I'm like, I don't know what the hell is going on, and I realized that I had stopped watching it when Avengers came out, thinking that that was the end of the season.
Oh. So did you go back and refresh it?
Yes, I immediately realized. I thought I'm missing something here. I immediately went back, and the nice thing was I didn't have to pay for it. Now season 2 is on Netflix, and so I watched. I think it was like 3 more episodes that I had not seen. It was kind of nice because I wasn't feeling very well that day. I was like, oh man, I just lay on the couch for hours here watching Agents of Shield.
Okay, here. All right. Everybody
we don't
watching.
want to spoil it for you, Joe. We know
everybody watching needs to buy a whole bunch of Joe Pulver books so I can get enough money to get Netflix because I want to watch this stuff. So, who cares if this Pulver guy writes any good or not? Just buy the damn books so I can get Netflix.
Yeah.
Well, Christmas is coming up, Joe. So.
But I'll say it, watching the show at this point, I don't care if they ever bring the X-Men back to the Marvel Universe. They've got the Inhumans to play with.
Okay, now we're on sacred ground. See, this is buy those damn Joe Pulver books. He's got 4 mixed genre collections. He's got The King in Yellow. Buy those Joe Pulver books so Joe Pulver can find out what's going on with his beloved Inhumans, who only rank #2 in the Marvel Universe because of Doctor Strange.
Now, you did see season 1 of The Flash, didn't you?
I did have the opportunity to see season 1 of The Flash, and I loved it.
Yeah.
I
thought you would.
I like the. When I was a kid, I got $1 a month to buy comics. So at first, when they were 10 cents...
Well, back in those days, you could buy a house with $1 when you were a kid, didn't you?
At first, you could buy 10 comics, but then they went to 12 cents. So what would happen is there was that spinner rack in Kavanaugh's card shop. And Joey Pulver would go in there, and he'd have $1. And he'd look at the comics on that spinner rack. And he'd get to pick out 8 comics. Now, I became a Marvel fan, but I looked at DC. There was all kinds of DC stuff I wanted, but it was all economics. The Flash was one of my earliest, most favorite superheroes. Matter of fact, I didn't like Quicksilver for the longest time in Marvel Comics because I thought he was a bullshit Flash. If I wanted speed, I wanted the Flash.
Yeah, I can see that.
It took me forever. I love the Scarlet Witch right out of the box, but it took me forever to warm up to Quicksilver. So yeah, the Flash. I've always thought that the Flash could be a great film.
They're really, without giving anything away, but if you saw the end of season 1, you know that they're getting into this whole multiverse concept of Flash, and I'm happy about that because they're doing it right.
Yeah, I like that. I really like the portrayal of the Flash. I love the guy they got playing the Flash. I think he's doing a great job. He's exactly what I want to see for the Flash. Um, you know, uh, I mean, I have this reputation as, and yes, I make mine Marvel. I think Kirby is God, but DC, there's a lot there. I just
Rick,
Yeah.
Rick, what do you think of the actress playing Iris? What do you think of the portrayal of Iris on this show?
I think the actress is good, but the character kind of,
yeah.
She's one of these people you want to shoot.
Yeah, I thought that myself, and I see that online. Other people, I'm thinking, oh, it's not just me. She's annoying as hell.
Right. Some of her mood swings were, like when she was going out with Eddie and he wouldn't tell her something and she got all angry at him, and I was going, oh, come on, get real.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was sort of like, well, Laurel was like that on The Flash. It's like, you really want to see Barry go out with somebody else.
On Arrow, you mean?
No, yeah, but I was saying, well, on Arrow we got Felicity eventually.
Oh, right.
But I was saying was when Barry was dating that newscaster, I said, forget Iris. You got this wonderful newscaster. It was actually Wally West's girlfriend and his wife in the comics.
Yeah.
Go with her. We don't have to be faithful to the comics.
No, you don't. Yeah, let's just kill off Iris. Fine with me. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that I'm not the only one that finds her annoying.
That's the character, it's the way the character is written. It's just like Laurel wasn't well written in Arrow in the beginning.
Right.
And Thea was another one who was incredibly annoying for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Oliver's
yeah,
sister.
I'd like to see more of the Arrow too, especially because every once in a while I hear that, oh, Dr. Fate was on or something.
No, not Dr. Fate. What's his name? The guy that
Hellblazer.
No, I'm blanking on.
Well, he's going to eventually be on.
The immortal guy.
Oh, Vandal Savage is coming.
Well, Vandal Savage.
Ra's al Ghul.
Ra's al Ghul, yeah, that's what.
A couple of immortals. But actually, Dr. Fate's helmet. Well, Dr. Fate was in Smallville, though I didn't watch those, and he was in the now canceled Hellblazer series. You saw his helmet briefly.
Actually, you should watch that episode. It was an almost 2-hour episode, Rick, and it was very, very well done. Where the one that Dr. Fate was, where he was introduced.
Well, I saw the 2-hour Justice Society one.
Oh yeah, the Justice Society one. Yeah.
That one I did see, but I didn't follow it afterwards.
No, he wasn't really on after that.
Well, I mean, I know
they're doing all these Netflix series.
Mm-hmm.
We need the Teen Titans. We need the Legion of Superheroes. We need the Metal Men. We need the Interior 5.
I cannot believe that Gotham is getting a second season. I think that show is so terrible.
Yeah, that is horrible. It's like watching the 4th Batman movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I know. I love what I saw of Gotham. I really love the guy who plays the Penguin.
Well, yeah, he's the only good part about the show.
But they don't know how to write that show. It's just going off in 20 different directions.
Oh, I gave up after about 5 episodes.
Now they may have a coherent storyline, but it seems to be, let's find some way for the villains to kill people gratuitously to make it more shocking.
Well, and I'm sorry, but all the villains are not all 20 years or more older than Batman. Which is how they're portrayed on this show. Because he's, 10 years old, thereabouts, on the show, Bruce is?
Yeah.
The villains are 25, 30, and up, years in age.
Right. Except for Catwoman.
Yeah, except for Catwoman.
No, I think Poison Ivy was young too, but I wasn't too enthralled with the way they did Poison Ivy.
Oh, they had Poison Ivy? I adore Poison Ivy.
Well, the little girl playing her didn't look like she was going to blossom into this gorgeous, voluptuous woman.
Well, you gotta be careful there. You know, you go back to when I was in 3rd grade, and there was this girl who used to chase me around, and she wanted to kiss me, and you know, when we grow up, we're gonna get married, and I thought she was hideous, you know. And then in high school, I'm like, why didn't I just go along with this? Because look at her now. And, you know, you got this thing called puberty. People change, you know. Plus, as you mature, your opinions change, hopefully, you know. So who knows what maybe someone who's unappealing at one particular age might be wow at another.
Well, so I don't have cable, but so on if the Flash is on Tuesday night, so Wednesday morning I will be watching the Flash. The phone will be off, and then same thing on Thursday morning I will be watching Supernatural with the phone off. So those are my 2 go-to mornings now that the fall season has started again.
Oh.
Yeah, there are some shows you don't want to be have the phone ring. I think I told you the story of how I was watching the anniversary show of Doctor Who, and then the phone rang, and I'm not answering. And I was at my mother's house, and my mother says, "Oh, it's your wife." I said, "I'll call her later. It can't be that important." With the calls coming in just in the show, if you saw it, is when all the doctors got together to save Gallifrey. You know, the best part of the show.
Yeah, and then they show, and they're like all 12, and he's like, no, all 13.
Right. Yeah, I mean, just when that was
so
all
you hung up on your mom to watch Doctor Who?
I hung up on my wife to watch Doctor Who.
Oh.
It's worse.
Well, my wife understands that I don't see the phone as an instrument where people can call me on it. You know, that's not what it's for. I don't ever answer the phone unless it's her or Logan. That's pretty much it.
But 10 minutes later, I did call her back after the whole show.
Oh, that was awful nice of you, Rick. Awful nice.
But there were things like, you know, this was the conclusion of years of Doctor Who. You might not be into that, but if you were really into the mythology like I was, it was just, you know, saving Gallifrey after they destroyed it, and
yeah, but see, this is another reason, besides hating commercials and the obnoxious cost of cable. This is another reason why I prefer not watching live, because I can pause it. You know?
Right. I mean, let's be indelicate here. You know, it's like I'm one of those people. I'd rather see the DVD or something because you know, as an old guy, you have infants and puppies and old men who suddenly need to go visit the bathroom. So that pause button, I love that thing.
Very handy, yeah.
Yeah. You know, especially when they put you on water pills and you really can't, you know, when it's time, ladies and gentlemen.
Hypothetically speaking, right? You've heard.
I've heard. Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah.
I've heard that these things will make you go a lot. And when it's time to go, it's time to go.
I agree with you on that. And the weird thing is also, I don't know how the theaters are in Germany now. The theaters in America now, you sit in these comfortable chairs with your feet folded up. If the movie doesn't grab you, you're going to doze off.
Oh, we only have one theater here that shows, you know, undubbed film, and of course, we don't go that often. The seats are very comfortable. I wouldn't call them it's not like sitting in your armchair at home, but they're padded and comfortable and got armrests and.
Well, I rarely go to the theater, but when I do, it's a movie that I really want to see, and I don't want to wait till it comes out on DVD.
Oh yeah,
or
I've been like that for decades now. It's like,
Well, I told you the story, didn't I? So, bearing in mind, if I'm there, it's because I want to goddamn see this movie. I'm really into this movie. So, being self-employed for forever, one of the things I would enjoy is what I enjoy is going in the middle of the day. Everybody else is at work. So I go this one time.
The first showing on a Tuesday, like at 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
I used to know this guy a million years ago who ran a theater, and he said Tuesday, the first show, is dead.
Yeah.
And to this day, I mean, all three Lord of the Rings,
yeah.
King Kong. Every time there's a movie like that, that's what I do. Tuesday, the first show.
So I'm the only guy in the theater, right? Everybody else is
yeah.
I'm the only guy. 2 minutes before the movie starts, this guy comes in, big bowl of popcorn, big pop, and he sits, I swear to God, one seat down, almost right next to me. And I looked over, and you guys know how laid back I am. I'm pretty friendly most of the time, right? I looked over at him, I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, well, I'm just trying to be friendly. I'm like, I got enough fucking friends. And I went down and I went back, I think, at least 5 or 6 rows. He got this real offended look on his face, and I'm like, come on, dude, really?
Yeah. I mean, I can remember going to see the King Kong film, and I sat where I like to sit halfway back, right on the left-hand aisle. That's where I like to sit. And a guy came in, and he had his drink and his popcorn. I had my drink, I had my popcorn, and he looked over, and I saw him, and he sat about 2 rows down from me on the exact opposite end. And we were the only 2 in there for that.
Yeah, dude, I'm not here to make friends.
Going to see a movie is not a community event to me.
Right.
If it was up to me, they wouldn't serve soda, they'd serve iced tea, and I'd be able to smoke, and I'd be the only one in the theater.
Well, I don't drink soda anymore for the simple reason, as you said earlier. You drink soda, you're going to have to go to the bathroom. And that's particularly going to happen if it's a movie like The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, which is longer than 2 hours.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Well, so anyway, next week we've got Wayne June, and apologize to the audience that Trent was a little crackly. I did a video test with him, but I don't know what changed between now and a few days ago, but there wasn't really anything I could do about it, but I think he was pretty understandable.
Yeah, I understood. It was great having him on.
Yeah, really great. Wayne June, a few weeks, we got Jeff Thomas and Christopher Taylor talking about the upcoming Punktown graphic novel. And like I said, Robert Levy, Paul Tremblay in a couple of months. So got some good guests coming up.
Cool.
So thanks, guys. Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you next week.